Hello, everybody. I'm Hermione Valino. Welcome back to the Book Corner. So we are once again reading another chapter from my book. I got my cup for drinking and everything. So I want to first of all start off by saying that I'm really enjoying doing this. It is a lot of hard work. It is definitely all part of the promotion process, at least to me it is. And it just feels like that I'm doing something that will will be great. So hopefully the next chapter is going to be flawless, and I won't be going through this. I really want to change that. So, yeah. So, here goes. Barbara decided against going to Taylor and his mother's double funeral. She'd seen enough death to last her lifetime and didn't think that her presence would help anyone. Everyone else went, mainly because they felt the need to go. Barbara spent her time at home with her cats and a good book in the library that she had designed herself. Her home library was had about 2,000 books, mostly mystery and fantasy. She had a table next to a chair to read whatever books she had chosen to read. Right now, a Kindle occupied the space, so she was reading from that. Ming curled up on her lap as she pressed the side of the screen to tell the reader to switch her to a new page. She sipped some of her wine and glanced at the clock occasionally. The funeral would be over in a few minutes, and then everyone would return to what they were doing. Suddenly Ming turned her head, and then the doorbell rang. Ming jumped off, and Barbara put her reader down to go and answer the door. She looked through the peephole and saw that it was Emma. She unlocked the door and slowly opened it. Emma wasn't dressed in black, but something pretty and colorful. Her hair looked like something out of a fairy tale, and her blue eyes sparkled with something like joy. "Was I bothering you?" she asked Barbara. "Of course not," she said. "Would you like to come in?" "Thanks," she said, and Barbara moved aside to let her enter. "Oh, you have kitties!" "Yes, I bought them a couple months ago," Barbara told her. "I got the idea after reading the Cat Who series. They aren't as smart as Coco and Yum Yum, but I love them." "Cats and books are always good friends," she remarked. Barbara agreed with that. "Want something?" she asked. "No, I already had enough to eat, and I don't think I can stomach some of the drinks offered at the wake." "Don't tell me. Everyone wanted to get drunk enough to forget why they are here." She nodded but said nothing. Barbara wondered what might be on her mind. "I wanted to talk to you about something," Barbara said, sitting on the couch in her living room, motioning Emma to join her. "I don't know if I can answer your questions," she said, "and even if I could, I doubt anything I have to say would be important." Barbara studied her like a detective studied a potential suspect. She said, "I know that you and Taylor, among others, were the target of Misty's hate." "Weren't you?" she asked. "I only experienced it briefly, but it wasn't pleasant." She sighed and said, "None of us knew why she hated us being there. I know her shop has been around for 20 years, but we all thought her acting like this was stupid." "Did she ever threaten you?" Barbara asked. "Several times," she answered. "She was always so vindictive and nasty. Everyone was confused at what we had done. I understand that both Misty and Taylor got threats from people who didn't like what they sold." Emma nodded and said, "They even came to my store, telling me I was promoting witchcraft because I carried the Harry Potter series. I just added that to all the shit that we were putting up with, not only from these groups but Misty as well." Barbara knew what she was talking about. Working as an author, she had to see many angry people who couldn't understand or even appreciate what Rowling had done. Of course, people didn't love her, but she still needed more fans to make a decent living. And that was just the tip of the shit that fantasy authors had to put up with. She could understand what Emma had gone through. "My agent told me Misty called about a school board meeting. I thought all the pro-book banners were about to explode in there." They're always like that, which can give anyone a migraine, Emma said. I know I drowned half a bottle of bourbon after one such meeting. It was nasty on a whole new level. Have any of you gotten bomb threats or threats to burn down your store? Barbara asked her. The look that she gave her told Barbara that they had. Dead animals? Emma nodded, and then Barbara saw her shaking. She stood up and put a hand on her shoulder. No one can harm you, Barbara assured her. Emma nodded, but she could tell that telling her this brought up emotions she knew her friend didn't want to experience. Why is this happening to us? She cried out. Why does someone want us dead? I think it has something to do with the books, Barbara told her. I think someone is taking this war against us to a whole level. A person that doesn't care what it does to the people we care about. Do you think the feds will get involved? I don't know, Barbara said. I hope so. I mean, Taylor died because his car blew up. Sorry. And I know someone followed him out of the church. Do you think his business will be targeted next? Emma asked. I mean, it happened to the Enchanted Reed. I have a feeling that it might just happen, Barbara said, not wanting to worry her. But she didn't believe in lying. Her thoughts were put on a sudden halt when her phone rang. She picked it up and said, Yes? It's me, Sam said. Something's wrong, Barbara asked him. Someone called the police, and the police called me, he told her. Barbara, the bomb squad is outside Taylor Lovechild's store. Barbara bolted to her feet, alarming Emma. What? A loud boom drowned out the rest of whatever he was going to say. She sat down, staring at space. Barbara? Emma took the phone from her and said, This is Emma. Barbara is in a state of shock. Yes, thank you for calling. I'll let her know. And she hung up. Barbara, the shop didn't blow up, Emma told her. But I heard. It was them detonating it away from the target, she said. Taylor's store is still there. Barbara was silent, though her mind wasn't. I've called the feds on this one, the captain told Hawk and Miller. Why? Because our people just disposed of a bomb, Hawk, he argued. This monster is not just killing people, but trying to blow up pieces of my town, and I have the right to take that personally. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. The feds are getting involved, and that's final, he said, closing any road for argument. I'm glad to be back working, Barbara told her crew, and thanks for calling me about what happened. I thought you should know, Sam said. So what happens now? Sally asked them, looking from Barbara to Sam. The only thing they can do is watch Taylor's business. I heard from Taylor's lawyer that Taylor has a sister coming up to take possession of the store. Might close it down so that it ends the murders wanting to burn down his shop. Sad thought she might keep the store open. Sad thought that she might not keep the store open. If she does, please have her change the decor, Sally begged. That place gives me the creeps going past it. Well, you three won't like the next place I'm going, Barbara said. Decaying Books, the one that opened a couple months ago. Oh, God, never mind, Sally said. Violet Fang, and I can't believe that Fang's her real name, has topped Taylor in the creepy department. There's nothing wrong with Violet Fang, Barbara promised. Decaying Books is only her second store, and I did a book sign at her New York one 3 years ago. A charming woman. Does she dress like Mrs. Adams? Daniel asked her. Of course, Barbara said. So, does anyone want to come? Count me out, boss lady, Sally said. Me too, Daniel said, shaking his head. I'll go, Sam said. Been wanting to pick up a horror book. Honey, we have horror books here. Sam gave him a look, but Barbara said, It would look better if he appears to be a paying customer. Have fun, Sally said. We will, Barbara promised. Decaying Books was located on the other side of Harper Street. Unlike Emma's store, this one was open. Emma was taking 3 days off to process everything that had happened. Decaying Books was no such entity. The outside of the store reminded Barbara of a decaying house. She was sure it had been designed like that and wasn't an unsafe place to be in. On the left of the door was a table with all sorts of old-time horror books. She picked up Dracula because her store had no copy and opened the entrance. The inside looked nothing like the outside, telling Barbara that Violet had the outside design like that. A few moments later, Sam joined her. having a hard time finding a stupid parking space that doesn't make me worry about someone doing something to my car, he told her. Hopefully, when all this is over, parking won't cause you to almost have a heart attack. She rang the bell, and a 16-year-old young man appeared a moment later. He wore torn jeans, a shirt that looked like he had put fake blood on it, a black leather vest, and a pin that read, "I live in the dead house." He was way taller than Sam, enough to give anyone the impression that Sam felt little and had short brown hair and brown eyes. He also smelled like acne medication that Barbara didn't like. "Yes," he said. "I would like to work with your boss," she told him. "Why?" "I'm an old friend of hers," Barbara said, feeling like his somewhat rude question might be something to do with the expiration date now on booksellers. "I'm Barbara Market. I signed my book at her New York flag store." He gave her a look that told her that he didn't believe her. However, Violet Fang herself saved his job by coming out of a side door. She was dressed, as always, like some Gothic queen. "Barbara Market has been a short time," she said, words not making sense, but Barbara getting what she meant. "John, we have a large delivery to get sorted through. Do it." "Yes, ma'am," he said, and he went off. "Sorry about that," she said. "John is my brother's son. He wanted John to learn some responsibilities. So, guess who's stuck doing that?" "I get it," Barbara said. "My daughter's the same. So, what can I do for you?" "I wanted to talk to you about the things that are going on," she said, "and to buy this book." She held up Dracula, and Violet smiled, showing fanged teeth. "Ooh, don't tell me the infamous Barbara Market doesn't have her copy of Dracula," she taunted. "Didn't have the money back then to even buy this. Never got out of the library?" Barbara shook her head. One of the things that she hardly ever talked about was growing up so poor that it seemed sunshine was the only thing you could afford. Her family had it hard, so Barbara made it a point to try and do something with her life that would allow her to even afford a couple of the things that other girls had. It had taken her to work on getting a scholarship, moving as far away from her family as she could, almost starving to death, and finally she got herself a job as a teacher. "Well, I'm sorry to hear that," Violet said, breaking Barbara away from her trail of thoughts. "As for what's going on, we should talk privately." "Of course," agreed Barbara. Sorry. Ugh, man. "Of course," agreed Barbara. They had them. Sorry. She had them follow her into a large room that had to be her office. Unlike the rest of the store, her office was neither creepy nor dark. It was a typical business office with a computer, fax/printer, and several pictures hanging on her walls. Some were her when she was younger, but a couple had her family. "I didn't mean to bring it up," she said, "but I feel that the truth is waiting to be discovered somewhere among all this pain and death, and I'm sure the police will agree with me." "Of course they would," Barbara said, "but they are also willing to put someone in jail to make themselves look better." Barbara knew she was talking about what Detective Hawk had made clear. "Do you have any problems?" "Not really," Violet said, though Missy didn't like it that I was around. Still, she didn't come around and bother me. "Why?" "Simply because I had a couple secrets right over her pretty little head. I can be nasty regarding everything that my husband and I worked for. It was his idea to open a store dedicated to horror. We had both been in love with the genre since we were younger. He was the one that got Stephen King to come and do a couple book signings, because they would always connect your store with him." Sam reasoned, and Violet nodded. "And it worked," Violet stated. "We made enough money to come here and open a small shop. My husband is still living in New York, blind now, but he tells me what's going on, and I follow his advice." Barbara was shocked to hear this. "I'm sorry, Violet," she said. "When did it happen?" 3 years ago," she answered. "The housekeeper got mad when he discovered she stole from him. She grabbed the nearest weapon, which turned out to be a bottle of open bleach. It got all in his eyes, and his vision went." She could tell that Violet wasn't happy about telling anyone this. However, she had to know the answers to her questions. "Did either of you or your husband get death threats?" Like the ones you got, she guessed, and Barbara nodded. No, we didn't. Of course, that didn't mean that we had it easy. However, I will say that most people went easy on us just as long as we kept stalking King and other authors as they liked. Still, I know what happened to Misty and Taylor, but I wouldn't say I liked it. It makes me believe that some war is brewing between whoever is doing this and us. I'm going to agree with you on that, Sam said. Barbara stood up and said, Thanks for answering my questions. We have something to honor what both of them did while alive. It's on Saturday around 3. I won't be able to make it, Violet said. I don't work on or do anything on Saturday. I understand, Barbara said, and they both left, though not without Barbara buying the book. When they returned to the shop, Sam, not Barbara, told the others. Barbara decided to handle some book orders that had arrived. Ordering books that she usually didn't have was an idea that Sally had come up with when she was talking to all of them about some of the things that they could offer their customers. It did require some searching, but most of the time she could find them. The order that had arrived had some old Fear Street books and some early books by Pike and a woman that Barbara, for the life of her, couldn't pronounce in it. Mr. Tiller had ordered around 20 of them. She picked up the phone and called, telling him his books had arrived. Oh, thanks, he said. I will be here today to pick them up. We're open till 5, and she hung up. I find it odd, Barbara heard Sally say as she returned to the front, that Violet wasn't having it as bad as the others. We all know that some nastiest people love coming here and causing trouble. I will agree, but you can't say someone is guilty just because they're not having problems. However, it could be that she's having some problems and doesn't want anyone to know. I want to know what secrets Violet had over Misty's head. And hiding the truth is sometimes better than facing it, Sam reasoned. So what do we do now? I have a couple of people I want to talk to, she said. However, some of them will have to wait. What do you mean? I'm going out of town, she answered. I'm leaving the store in your hands, Sally, and I'll be back in a couple of days. What about the remembrance thing, she said. You can handle it, Barbara said, smiling at her, but this is something that I have to go to. What exactly is it? Daniel asked, and then he took a drink from his mug. It's the annual authors' convention, she said. It's usually about 500 authors that talk about what books they are writing, why they can't understand how they could lose their book rights so quickly, and complain about the future of ebooks. Trust me, I don't like going, but I must. Sounds dull and boring. Trust me, it is, she said. Hawk and Miller both shook their heads when the two agents arrived. For the last couple of days they had both been trying to figure out if there was anyone who knew both Misty and Taylor, and if the two victims had caused anything to happen to lead them to both be murdered. Now the case was in the hands of the ATF, and there was no way they would be allowed near it. Must be so nice to think so highly of yourself. Not a fan of them? Miller said to him. Of course not, Hawk said. Not when they take my case away from me. Should we warn Margaret? No, he answered. Miller looked at him and asked, Are you worried that they might arrest her? Of course not, he answered. Margaret's a big girl. She can handle them. I hope you're right, said Miller. Barbara packed her bags, knowing that her departure would probably make her look bad in the eyes of the police. However, as she had done nothing wrong, she didn't feel guilty about leaving. She had instructed Sally and the others about upcoming deliveries, and Mr. Tiller had come to collect his books. However, Sally mentioned that they weren't for him. They were for his son, who lived with him. I heard about his son, Sally said over the phone. He's a dentist. Of course, that meant that the whole delivery made sense. Barbara had to smile at that thought. After she hung up, she put her phone on the footrest while she checked her purse. She picked up her bags and was just about to leave when an alert was on her phone. She bent down to see what it was when 5 shots suddenly came through her window, along with a horrible scream. Barbara ducked when she heard the first shot, reaching for her case to fish out the gun that Sam had demanded her to carry. She then listened to a car screaming away in complete silence, except that she had heard the screaming. She didn't feel anything other than annoyance, and then she turned her head and found that Ming was missing. Getting up, she started looking for her. Finally, she found Ming under her bed, shaking. "It's all right, girls," she said, holding her baby close. "God, I'm so glad you weren't hit." And then she called the police. Barbara thought she had lost Ming. Thankfully, only her cat's nerves had suffered, and Sam came around to take Ming to the vet while the police worked. Home was no place for a scared kitty to have to be assaulted by more noise. The police, of course, had arrived to pull 5 bullets out of the wall, from a shattered book spine, the TV, the closet door, and a chair. Barbara called the hotel and canceled her reservation. She couldn't talk to other people, looking like she had returned from the Bates Motel. And then she noticed that there were other people. The people that Barbara had a bad feeling weren't the police. "Is that who I think it is?" she asked Daniel. "Yep," he answered, "the feds." Barbara didn't have long to think about them. She got into her car and drove to the vet to see her baby. "Thanks for telling me that Ming is going to be all right," Barbara told Sam after she arrived. She had been frantic with worry, thinking about what could have happened to her baby. "No problem," he said. "However, the vet has something to tell you." Barbara gave him a worried look. However, he only did was chuckle. "Are you trying to give me a heart attack?" she asked him. "Of course not," said Sam, holding his hands up, "but I thought it was funny when she told me." "Well, I'm not finding it funny," she said, "not after the morning that I've been having." When the vet came around, one of the 7 on staff, she shook hands with Barbara. The vet was a tall, slender woman with short brown hair with some gray strands running down it. "I just love reading your books," she said. "Are you bringing a new one out?" "No," Barbara answered, shaking her head. "I'm done writing." "That's too bad," she said. "Well, the bullet shattered the wood, which caused Ming to run for her bed. However, we found something out during our exam of her." "What? What's wrong with Ming?" "She's pregnant," the vet answered. Barbara almost passed out. That should be impossible," Barbara said. "My cats have both been fixed." "Then the person that sold them to you lied," the vet said, "and as they most likely just became mature enough to have babies, that explained how you could have been lied to about not having any problems with them, at least in this department." Barbara wasn't against the idea of kittens, it's just that she was afraid of getting arrested. Siamese, and she knew that what she was getting into when she got her pair, made enough noise to break the law. "I'm glad the bullet didn't hit something important," Sam reasoned, "and you want to bet it's the same person that killed Misty and Taylor." The vet looked confused, but Barbara said, "We're looking into what happened to both of them. I'm a bookseller, and the first murder happened across the street from my shop." "I understand," she said. "On the subject of your cat, make sure that if there's any problems, you bring her back." "I will," Barbara promised, and they left, promising to pick Ming up in the morning. Her agent had left a message telling her he had heard about her canceling her hotel reservation, thus none of her friends would see her. Sam did the whole "dead authors make agents more money" talk, which Barbara mostly agreed with. And then another message from Chuck. It was good to hear that he was released from the hospital. Barbara had a burning question that she hoped Chuck might be able to answer. So she called. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Sorry, I was in the bathroom," he told her. "So, what do you want to talk to me about?" "Your door," she answered. "Sam told me it was ajar when he knocked on the door." There was a pause, and then, "What about my door?" "Why wasn't your door locked?" she asked him. "Never saw the need," he answered. "Unlike in Chicago, which I heard from Misty you were raised at, we don't need to lock our doors. There's no one trying to kill, rob, or rape us." Until now, Barbara thought, and then the tone that he gave, which she figured had much to do with small-town people looking down on those living in big cities, somewhat unnerved her. "What about your son?" "My son and daughter were both away. As much as it pains me, we won't be looking for another location for the Enchanted Reed. So, it's just collecting the insurance money and retiring." "I understand," Barbara said. "Well, we're planning something for your wife and Taylor. Will you be there?" "No," he said. "I'm not coming anywhere near any event for my late wife. Now I must get going," and he hung up. "That's odd," she said, frowning at her phone. "Chuck doesn't want to be near what we're doing for his wife and Taylor. Probably just wants to cut all ties with the book community. It does happen. And he made a mention that he doesn't lock his door. Never saw the need." Sam sighed and said, "That's what it's like down here, and you know that as much as anyone. Locals don't think crime can come home to roost, so they don't lock their doors. It's only when it happens that they change what they're doing. I had to learn that when I moved up from Florida." "I agree that much," Barbara said, biting her lower lip. "I was born here, but being in Chicago most of my life made me forget that not everyone can accept that life is no longer simple or safe." "I know why you're asking about the door," he said. "You want to find out if someone within the family might have caused Chuck to come to harm." "Correct," Barbara said. "This whole thing is more confusing than the first book I wrote. Nothing makes sense here, and it's driving me crazy." "Don't let it make you too crazy," Sam warned. "I don't want to visit you in a padded room world." Barbara had a grin at that. The following day, Barbara arrived at work, unlocked the door, turned off the alarm, and checked the footage from the night. The only thing was a homeless man peeing outside her back door, and she turned off the video, and soon the others arrived. "I'm sorry about you being unable to make your event." Barbara waved Sally's apology away and said, "Another year, another event. I'm just glad that I'm not lying in the morgue with a couple of bullet holes in my chest." "And me." "Okay, but pregnant," Barbara said. "I'm going to have a couple choice words with Miss Cookie Holder, and don't laugh, that's her actual legal name." "Just don't break the law while doing that," Sally reasoned. "I'll double agree with that," said Sam. "So, now that our esteemed boss lady will be in our clutches for the next year, what do we do today?" Barbara looked at him and asked, "What are you talking about?" "Well, we do sell books, but today we're having a tea event," he said. "Sally's thinking you would be gone for a week, so set up a tea event for the book club. They're in the middle of a Victorian book craze and wanted us to have those cute cakes and English tea." "I found both," Daniel remarked. "Of course, I must go the next town to pick them up, but they are just so darling." "And how many members of the book club are coming?" Barbara asked him. 100, he answered. Barbara almost had a heart attack. This store couldn't hold 100 tea biddies. "Don't worry, darling, we have it all set up," Daniel told her. "I thought there was only 10 members," she said. "How do we jump up to 100? "Who knows," Sam said, shaking his head. "But murder can sometimes be good for business." Barbara was killing the person who thought that phrase up. When they opened the doors at 9, it was the usual crowd. Sally had changed the date of the remembrance event from tomorrow to Saturday, though Barbara doubted anyone would come. Most book fans and authors would be at the event. She couldn't attend. Still, she made some calls, got some promises, and hung up, feeling that she had done something productive. Sam left around noon to pick Ming up, and Barbara thought about her life in a couple of months, which would include enough noise to make her the least desirable homeowner. "Want to bet Ching's the daddy?" Sam said. "You would win that bet, so I'm not bothering," she said, grumpy and moody. Barbara was sound asleep when the phone rang. Checking the time, which was 3 in the morning, she went to the phone to answer, almost dropped the phone, and said, "Hello? Then this better not be a crank call." "No, this is Detective Hoff." She rubbed her eyes and asked, "Who?" "Miss Mark, are you still asleep?" he asked her. "Aren't you?" "I never sleep," he lied, and Barbara snorted. "Yes, I'm finally awake," she said. "What do you need?" "The bookstore that Mr. Lovechild owned has been torched." Barbara sat down and said, "So that means it's the same person." "I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong about that," he said. "So why you're telling me?" "Because we have the ATF in town, and I wanted to ensure that they didn't think you had done it." "Great! Something else to worry about." "Thanks for letting me know and warning me," Barbara said. "God, I'm glad that no one got hurt." "We were lucky this time," he said. "The next time we might not be." Barbara thanked him again and hung up. The tea party turned into a massive nightmare for everyone. When Barbara had gotten the space, she had to clean up a large section of the back for parking. The week before, the shoe store had shut down for some unknown reason, meaning the back lot was now linked. Daniel and Sam worked on putting up the large cloth extension that Barbara reminded Daniel was called a tent. It was one of those white ones that they used in weddings. Sally's sister Darla had a wedding last month, and her husband bought the tent. And as the weather was still warm enough, Barbara thought that this might work out. "I wish we had hired a catering company," Sally said, looking at everyone. It's supposed to be English teas and cakes, Barbara reminded her. I know that, but I still wish that we had. Barbara trusted that Sally could do this. She just needed to have faith in herself like Barbara needed confidence in herself that she could solve this mystery. That afternoon she called the breeder who had sold her fully fixed kittens that turned out to be not fixed at all. To her horror and anger, the woman had moved away, taking her money. So she called her lawyer, who had helped her a couple of times in copyright lawsuits she had faced a decade ago. I can hire my son to find her, Mr. Stockwood told her. I would love that, Barbara said, and thanks, you have no idea how much this means to me. No problem, he needs the work, he told her. He's been real depressed lately. Sorry to hear about that, she said just as Sam came in and let her know with a card that someone wanted to talk to her. I'll see you later, I have a customer, and she hung up. All right. So it was supposed to be cooler, but I'll stick with the warmer one. I'll stick with the warmer one. Okay, so that is chapter 5, and yes. So thanks for reading, or thanks for following me, and I'm officially 3 chapters away from finishing the book. So yay! I will be doing a video with the sample of the next book. So yeah. So I will see you guys around, and thanks for watching.